So this session is about practicing transdisciplinary research in Thailand, lessons and challenges. Actually, what we hope to do with this session is to invite everybody who's participating to also share lessons and challenges. So we'll start from the example from Thailand, but we would like to hear what other people have to say as well. So let's hope there are more people joining and that we can really turn this into an interactive session. So the plan will be that we'll start with a brief introduction by Dr. Kangwan Jantarachod, who is a chair of the TBTI Foundation, Global Foundation, based in Thailand. But Dr. Kangwan has been working as a professor at the university in fisheries. Fisheries economics is his specialization, but he would tell the story about how he is now calling himself a TD researcher. But importantly, Dr. Kangwan has been providing advice to the government of Thailand, the Department of Fisheries, about various aspects, including the law and the policies, the management and governance. So we would hear perspective from what it is like to work with government and trying to get them to appreciate small-scale fisheries. Then we'll go with the next presenter, Dr. Suvalak Sutumanatpan. Dr. Suvalak is a coastal expert, so she's written the bestseller textbook in Thailand about integrated coastal management. Fisheries are, of course, part of that, and therefore we need to figure it out how to really look at integrating fisheries into this context of coastal governance and what are some of the concerns, especially in the today's conversation about blue economy. The third presenter is Dr. Thammasak Yini. Dr. Thammasak is a biologist and ecologist specializing in coral reefs ecosystem. So he's indeed one of the world's leading experts in coral ecosystem health and monitoring of corals. So he's actually studied in Japan and is like I said, a well known for his specialization. But you would be surprised to find how Dr. Thammasak has converted, I would say, to now working with coastal communities as part of his research. So he's really practicing TD. And then we would go with the final presenter, which is Jariya Songkliang, and she is working with SEFDEC. Sorry, so I didn't mention, Dr. Suvalak is working with a professor at Mahidol University. And Dr. Thammasak is a professor at Ramkhamhaeng University. So we're talking about university researchers going into policy, working with legal office, working with communities. And then the final speaker is Ms. Jariya, who is working with SEPTEC, and she's basically working in the Southeast Asia context, working with women and communities. So all of us, none of us is a trained transdisciplinary scientist, but all of us are practicing TD. And we're hoping that our participants to the session, we would invite you to also share your stories about TD as well. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Kangwan to make an introduction to this session. Please, Dr. Kangwan.
Thank you, Dr. Ratana. So before we start to practicing TD in Thailand, I would like to introduce the Thai small-scale fisheries in Thailand as a grant. By law, Thailand classify fishery to three categories: small-scale fisheries, commercial fisheries, and overseas fisheries. The small-scale fishery, they have a designated to fish within the coastal area of the country. And in terms of number of the fishery household in Thailand, or small-scale fishery household, we have the latest marine fishery census in the year 2000. On that time, the number of fishery household is around 80,000 households along the coastal area. And we have around 3,000 fishing communities on that. But after that, we don't have any fisheries such at all. So that is one weak point of the country. We should have census every 10 years in order to have a cross-section analysis of our fisheries. However, we try to use the register one to be a figure for management of the small-scale fisheries. From registration, we have around 70,000 fishery households in the country. And by regulation of the Department of Fisheries, each fishery household can own only one fishing boat. Therefore, we can estimate that from the registration, the number of fishing boats of small-scale fishery is around 70,000. And they operate with the simple gear, low efficiency gear. But in terms of number now, it's doubt that the number of fishing gears they employ for each fishing boat. Some fishing boat they employ quite a big number of fishing gear. For example, the crab trap. Usually they should operate just 200 or 300 crabs per household. But some household they operate come to the 1,000. It's because it's a collapsible one. So it's really easy to carry on the boat. That is lead to the conflict among the fishers who employ the other type of fishing gear. In terms of governance, Thai small-scale fishery has a good opportunity to be a representative in the National Fishery Policy Committee. We have a representative of small-scale fisheries in that committee. Also, in the provincial level, small-scale fishers also be a member of in this committee. They can manage fishery in their province. So, in Tokona, I think the small-scale fisher has a good opportunity to engage in managing their own fishing ground. And come to the overall view of the small-scale fishery household in Thailand. We can say that most of the fishery household in Thailand is better off. They have all infrastructure, good road, medical care, school, clean water, electricity. Every community have all of this infrastructure. So the main issues of this small-scale fisheries in Thailand is sustainability. How to sustain the small-scale fishery in the coastal area. So, in order to cope with these issues, we need TD. In the past, we used on this discipline, multidiscipline, but it's not work. I have a confidence that TD is the answer to cope with the issue of small-scale fisheries at this moment. I would like to compare TD with a camera. At the beginning of management, we use a single discipline. Like you have a camera with a fixed lens. You take a photo for an object. You can get the same thing. Like we use biological approach, try to find out MSY, TAC, and so on. And then try to force the fisher to limit their fishing effort. That's all. And then we come to the multi-species one. Multi-discipline. For the multi-discipline, it's like we have a changeable lens camera. You can use wide lens, macro lens, telephoto lens. But the pictures that you take from each lens can give you something that specific. The macro lens, you can see the details of the pictures. Photo lens, you can see the picture far from you, but the frame is narrow. So what is TD? TD is to combine all the lenses together to become zoom lens. And then from that lens, you can compromise the picture to have a perfect picture for you. So it means that TD need all of this field work together, don't work separately. And then we get a good solution. So I can conclude that TD is a zoom lens. Thank you.
This is fantastic. Everyone has a question about what's TD and how is it different from multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity. So I think this analogy is actually quite nice. And of course, this morning we already had some conversation about the lenses. So basically, you are now bringing the lens analogy or metaphor again, which I think works. But again, you know, your people attending the sessions, we're going to go back to you after the presentations and get your feedback on this. What do you think about TD? How can we talk about TD so that I think a question earlier for you, Kangwan, this morning was about how to engage the government in TD, right? So that we don't get afraid of TD. Okay, so let me now turn to Dr. Subalak. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Good. สวัสดีค่ะคืออย่างนี้ค่ะ Okay, sorry. It's in English. Following Kangwan, it seems to me that yes, we are necessary to go for TD, but for me, when I look to three keywords, for instance, multidiscipline, and then interdisciplinary, and then transdisciplinary. Okay, I keep myself with these three keywords, and I found that yes, it seems that we do have a platform for multidisciplinaries spread over the country, as we can see it in terms of setting governance for natural resources, even in the fishery, in the coastal resource, or other things. All the single laws say the same thing, that we need multidiscipline to form the committees at the national or at the local scale. So in that task, we keep saying that is the integration because we contain multiple stakeholders. So you mixing up, for me, we're mixing up between multidiscipline and interdiscipline. We believe that we are interdiscipline, but I think we just multidiscipline for the time being, as it doesn't cover the good stage of working together closely. Look at, when I think about the multidiscipline, it seems that we have a bowl of salad. We can still separate. This is some kind of veggies and all the ingredients, but when you go to the interdisciplinary, it seems that it's come to a melting together, but still can separate a little bit. But if you are transdisciplinary, it is a cake. You cannot separate anything. It's just so smooth and so nice. So for me, I think three pictures about this, and I believe, as I said, we are in between multidiscipline to go to interdiscipline. For myself, when I wrote my book 10 years ago, I really appreciate integration. But when time passed, about 5 years after, I found that it is not real because we not really integrate. right? So that is one aspect after Ajahn Kangwan. The second aspect, when you look to the coastal resources or coastal system, we all agree on the fact that that is very complex issues. It's very dynamic. It's intersectoral in cross jurisdiction. So only discipline is not enough. It has to be, fixing and blend it carefully. That is one point. So we need to move from the interdisciplinary. I think that we have to make interdisciplinary good and then move to the transdisciplinary that we are not get used to it. The harder things of going into the transdisciplinary for me, it's when you frame the problems. When you frame the problem, it means that you have to get a number of relevant stakeholders. When I said relevant stakeholder, I mean, for instance, if that area allow which stakeholder that who caused the problem or who benefit from it, it should come and work together to create, to learning and problem framing. And I found that across the 23, 24 coast of Thailand, problem framing is tame. Everyone look is very easy. Just do this because we get used to it. So that is one point that is hard, and people think that so many people, different stakeholders come together. That's not enough. That's not enough. You have to go more than that. Like understand what are the linkages between different systems, where's the problem come from, things like that. So the problem is framed properly and it's very hard before we kick off. So something that we should move on. My experiences, I learned the TD about, I think, one in Trat provinces and then in Chiang Mai provinces. And recently, last year, in Phetchaburi, that is the 3D when we try to what exactly the small scale fishes relating to the FAO and a numbers of, I think, more than 10 legal framework together. That is getting started. So 3 workshops together, still hard for the time being. But move on. I agree that it is needed to go to TD, but make the multidiscipline to be a real integration, and then the next step to be a transdisciplinary. Thank you. Yes,
Thank you for that.
I have. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead. What is it that you wanted to say?
No. I just said that I think I have enough for this role.
Okay.
So let
All right.
someone else talk.
So we have a camera metaphor, and then we have now the food metaphor, right? Is it about the salad or is it about cake? Okay, so that's good. Keep thinking about that. Dr. Thammasat, tell us, please, what in your context, what is it like to do TD research, especially in the, as a coral reef coral ecologist? Go ahead. If you'd like to share your presentation, you go ahead too.
Yes, I would like to share my screen because I can't talk without the PPT.
This is also a difference between different disciplines, right? Some discipline can just tell stories, and some discipline needs a PowerPoint.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. And good evening, colleagues. I would like to thank Ratana for allowing me to share lessons learned from the Gulf of Thailand. I'm not the one who work on the management or governance aspects, but my background is from ecology. So I would like to share with you about when we talk about coral reef conservation and try to link with the fisheries, particularly the small scale fisheries. So what I want to share with you here is as the title is from coral reefs to dry fish. So I would like to start with the coral reef conservation and try to link with the stakeholder engagement. That means I would like to focus on the stakeholder engagement, and also I study perception of stakeholders about marine debris and microplastics. And in this study, I will show you the impacts of marine debris and microplastics on coral reef ecosystems. And we also provide information about contamination of microplastics in dry fish products. And also we have some experience on coral reef cleanup activities at our study sites. So let me show you the locations of our study sites in Chuenpagdee province in the Western Gulf of Thailand. Some study sites are located in the Chuenpagdee National Park. We have fishing activities as well as tourism activities in this area. The coral communities are found around small islands or underwater pinnacles. I show you here an example of the coral condition at a study site on Hinpae underwater pinnacle. You can see that the live coral cover was very high compared to dead coral cover. That means the coral condition at this study site is in a very good condition. And for species compositions of live corals, the massive coral Porites lutea is the most abundant corals, and there are also several abundant corals as well. And there are also some reef fish and macro invertebrates, which are attractive marine life for tourists, as well as in this area, they provide habitats for the stocks for fishing as well. And if I look at the stakeholders of coral reefs and fishery resources in Chuenpagdee province, I think we have at least three main groups. The government sector include Chuenpagdee Provincial Office, Chuenpagdee National Park, Chuenpagdee Provincial Tourism and Sport Office, Tourism Authority of Thailand, the local administrative organization, Provincial Fisheries Office, Provincial Resources and Environment Office, and also the research from the universities. And for the non-government organizations, which are also important stakeholders, such as Tourism Council of Thailand, Chuenpagdee Chamber of Commerce, Press Association, Tourism Business Association, and also the Community-Based Tourism Association. For the private sectors, there are small-scale and large-scale fishers, dive shops, tour boats, and also tour operators in the area. And we also study the public perception of marine debris and microplastics. We found that over 80% of respondents realize the impacts of marine debris and microplastics on marine organisms. And about 80% of respondents also realize the impacts on tourism. And over 70% of respondents also realize the impacts on human health. There are several coral reef cleanup activities in the area, which are conducted by volunteer divers and the local fishers. What we have learned from them is that this graph shows you the high proportion of coverage of derelict fishing gears on live corals at our study site. And if we consider the composition of the derelict fishing gears, we found that most abandoned fishing gears are fishing nets and fishing traps, and some are ropes and monofilament. We also examine the abundance and composition of microplastics in dry anchovy products from the Western Gulf of Thailand. 5 dry anchovy products were obtained from the local markets in the Western Gulf of Thailand to assess the microplastics contamination. The abundance of microplastics in dry anchovy fish range from, let's say, 0.47 up to 3.18 particles per gram of the dry fish. And the size of microplastics range from 100 to 1,000 microns. And we found 4 types of microplastics, that is PE or polyethylene, PET, polyethylene terephthalate, rayon, and also PP, polypropylene contamination in the dry anchovy products. And we also assess the contamination of particles of microplastics in shrimp paste, that is a unique Thai dry fish products from one of our study sites in Chuenpagdee province. And you can see that we found microplastics particles in shrimp paste, including plastic fragments and plastic filaments. And when we use the chromatograms of microplastic samples compared to the standard chromatograms of the microplastics, which we analyze by using the FTIR machine, we can see that the composition of microplastics that we found in the shrimp paste include the PET, PS, the polyurethane, and also the polyvinyl alcohol as well. That there are several types of microplastics that we found on the dry fish products in that area. Finally, I would like to give you that from my experience on this case study, I think there are several key issues and challenges. The first one is that we need the improvement of the collaboration of relevant agencies and stakeholders in that area. And also, we would like to have the enhancing of the local participation to several activities that we want to give it as the important point for coral reef conservation in the area. And also some conflicts on fishery resources at some areas, and providing financial and academic support still be very important aspect that we have to consider. And the last point is that the research dissemination and also knowledge management are very important aspect that we have to consider when we are going to talk about the coral reef conservation and the linkage to the local fishers in the area. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Thamasak. Like I said, it's one of those examples of how biologists, ecologists really are working on issues that are affecting small-scale fishing people or need that involvement and engagement with them. So you actually are, at least in the way I interpret your work, it is really getting into that space on TD, which is really bringing in various knowledge and disciplines together, and also talk about perception and how they would, contribute to building or developing policies and conservation-oriented policy in this case that would benefit the community. So thank you. So that we're coming to the final presentation, and then we would then go to our participants to share their experience as well. So Jaraya, you're next. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. Okay, let me show you on the what we are working with the fishing community under the secret program. So because we are talking about TD, so I would like to show the two cases of the shipwreck that we think that we are it's like for us we call it success case study with of us when we working with a fishing community. Sorry, let me show you. Okay, the first one is I would like to show you about the crab bank at the Patil district, Chuenpagdee province in Thailand. The crab bank here is started in 2002. At initiate time, we have 15 members participate in the group, and fishers who are crab by using collapsible crab trap will donate the fish to the group. Crab with carrots to the group to let it release egg, and then they will sell the mother crab. So and the money from the crab selling, they will manage in the group, like accumulate money for a member to borrow or do something. Yeah, and also if they have enough, they will return to the member group. This is why I show this case study, because right now in Thailand, along the coastal line, we can see a lot of the crab bank group. The crab bank group here, that is when they started, we brought the fisher to visit the Trat province at that time to see the mangrove crab bank project, and then the fishermen they got that idea and they would like to adapt to the for the blue swimming crab here in Chuenpagdee province, and this is because of we know at that time the problem is the decreasing of the crab stock in there. So the project try to enhance, and we try to think what we have to do, and so we discuss with the fisher and we bring them to the study site and come back. They start the crab bank. So from the crab bank starting, and then from 2002, right, in 2006, Mr. Chang Phung, who are the leader of the group, he got famous because many persons come to visit and talking with him about the concept of the crab bank. So then the concept of the crab bank for the blue swimming crab is expressed a lot. Even the TV program or newspaper will come to him and talk to him. So the crab bank become famous in Thailand as the one that indicator that I show you, the how success of the crab bank is in 2018. The council minister of the Thailand approved the project on establish 500 crab bank along the coastal line within 2 years. This is just the thing that we can. That's why right now we can see a lot of the crab bank, and not just only crab bank, but this is just activity for resort enhancement. So right now, in the group, they start even the business, tourism. The people will visit the group, they can visit the crab bank activity and coastal coastal scenery around there, and also they can enjoy the crab donation. Like they will release the crab to the sea, and they will donate some money. This is and I have visited along the coastal line for the crab bank group, and I saw a lot of the activity under the crab bank. This is the one of the thing that I think it's we are co-create the activity with the local community based on their needs, and this one is another activity. Yeah, we need to have activity for men and women, right? For this one is for the women. Last year we exhibit the group of the salted fish in Suk Samran, Ranong province. This one is they, because we visit this area and we talking with them, and the women said that they would like to make the salted fish here because they have a lot of fish products. But you know that Ranong province is how to say in Thailand, we say 8 months for rain and 4 months for sunshine. So it's difficult to make the salted fish without the sunshine. So they have the local indigenous knowledge around in the southern part. Is they will make the salted fish and they will put in the sand to make it salty and make it dry. But it's not really dry at the sunshine, it's still moisture. So this group would like to know that kind of technique. So we support them to practice, and we bring a lot in this time. We brought a lot of the people to join them, like from the public health, from the development society, to let them know how to conduct the business, and let them know how to make their product can get the certified in the future for the food safety, something like that. So now this group is starting to produce their product. This is just another example of the women group to show that we. So I just would like to say that maybe I think that now in the Safe Deck, when we are working with community, we try to create the activity with the fisher. So I think can I call the co-creation step under the transdisciplinary, but in this step we just co-create among Safe Deck and fishery officer with local community, women and men. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very. You just turn off. Stop sharing the screen, please. The TD by definition is very broad. It doesn't need to be with particular group. It can be initiated by the community themselves, right? But it could involve, I mean, that's a concept of closed and open TD actually. So the closed TD is just among scientists still, but with different discipline, different knowledge from the health, medicine, engineer, business, and scientists working together, for instance, to address these kind of complex problems. But an open TD, it's about the other set of knowledge holders, which in this case would be fishing people. So your co-creation process is definitely a TD process according to the literature about TD. Okay, so I invite all our presenters to turn on your camera, and I would now invite, actually, I could make all the attendees into, people don't do this, but I'll do it. I can make you all panelists. So that way you would be able to speak and show your camera and have good conversation with us. There's no need to hide in the room here. There's so few of us at the moment. And it would be better to just, have a good conversation, because that's what we're missing, right? Real good conversation. I would do that to all of you, but you feel free, to turn on your camera or not. That is entirely up to you. But okay. So, do you, first of all, is there any question, any kind of comment that you would like to speak and talk or ask or share? Any examples that you'd like to share? Or any question that you might have for the presenters? I have promoted everybody to panelist, but I don't see anyone else in the panelist list except for Elena. Thank you. Did you have to say yes? Did you have to accept? So nobody wants to do it. Oh, well, doesn't matter. But Elena, we don't know much about you. We know that you are here in Shizuoka and you are studying in Kyoto. Could you share a little bit about what you do in your PhD research and your experience and your training and background?
Yeah, I'm currently a PhD student at Kyoto University. I'm in the Department of Economics, but actually my background is more in political science and development studies. And I actually became interested in development studies because I spent a year in Thailand, in Sirasha, as an exchange student. Yes, so I lived with a Thai host family, but I was also first introduced to I went from a very rural town in the United States to living in a very rural town in Thailand. And I was, for the first time in my life, got to see the very different side of the world. So that's kind of what sparked my interest. But anyway, my research now, I'm focusing on privatization issues for fishing communities, especially coastal privatization. And one of my case studies is in Songkhla province. And so currently, I'm more focusing on another one of my case studies, which is in the Tohoku region of Japan, Momono-ura district. And so part of my interest in participating in this panel is to hopefully improve my networking so that I can get more opportunities to go into the field in Thailand and speak to fishers and meet more people. So it's very exciting to listen to all of you. And I'm very much so a beginner in this topic is in Thailand. So yes, it's nice to meet all of you.
Right, great. Can we ask you then, why privatization as a topic?
Yes, so for me, what's very important to me is that local people in the place that they live, that the priority should be about the people there. And I think a lot of times with privatization projects, it's very top down. And I feel like local people don't necessarily have the power or the voice to speak out against or to do anything about these kind of circumstances. And so I think one way that can really help is through research, through spreading awareness about these issues and giving people a voice. So for me, that's very important to making these issues more aware.
So,
yes.
Right. So in TD, when we practice TD, right, it is about, a lot of people like to use the word empowerment, but basically it's enabling, right? So our role as a researcher is an enabler. So they should be the ones speaking with their own voice. We are not representing them. But how to make people feel that they own the topic and there is really the issues, and how to help them communicate, or really, or facilitate networking and sharing of that concern, and working more than anything else with the officers, right? The government official might be dismissing a lot of what the communities have to say. How do you make sure that they are not dismissed, right? And their voice is actually heard. I see that we have more people joining the session, and this is another final call here in terms of we are into promoting you into the panelist so that you can have good engagement conversation with us if you're interested. Doing that, to Tara, because I know that Tara has a lot of experience as well. You don't need to accept it, but if you want to, you definitely can join us. Nireka, would you like to be promoted? Or you just want to ask question? I can do that. Why don't you come in and join the room? That's great. Tara, would you like to do the same? Okay, no worries. Okay. Nireka, do you have a question?
Yes.
Comment? Yes.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, for all the very stimulating presentations. I came in a bit late, so I didn't get all of them. But my question is actually to Tamasak. Very interesting transition from being a coral reef or natural scientist to going into dried fish and also nutrition and food science aspects of and contaminations issues, right? So my question to Tamasak is, what has been the most challenging thing for you to move from being a social scientist to from being a natural scientist to incorporating social science in your work? What has been the most challenging or difficult thing about social science for you?
Good question.
So my answer is that I have many friends that they are social scientists. That is my challenge. Anyway, when I work on the natural science for a long period of time, I found that I realized that there are some discipline that I have to understand, and I have to integrate the knowledge from economics, from the social science, and from the behavioral science and political science as well to for analyzing my natural science data. And if I don't bring the discipline, as I mentioned earlier, to my natural science data, it seems that I can't talk to the public and to make them support my idea. For example, I would like to do coral reef conservation. I can't talk with the people only how many percentage of the live coral cover or something like that. I have to convince them to the importance of the coral reef ecosystems in terms of socio-economic aspect or something like that. So that's why I have to find the friends from the social science sector. And I think as far as I move in this direction, fortunately, I think that I have many friends, many colleagues who are very, experts, have very expertise on the socio-economic aspects, like Pope Ratana, for example. Thank you very much.
And I think, Tamasak, you just nailed it. Thanks so much, Nireka, for that question, because this is a real difference, right, between interdisciplinary science and TD. Because in interdisciplinary practice, we want to train someone to be able to do everything. And you're kind of like a jack of all trades as an interdisciplinary scientist. But as a TD, you know where to go. You are good at what you do. And you know who else is better at something else that you're never going to be good at. So you build that kind of like alliance, a network, and really work together to help address, these kind of really multifaceted question. Is that how you see it as well, Nireka, in the kind of work that you do?
Yeah, I think so, Ratana. Though, when you talk about transdisciplinary, you are, as far as I understand, you are supposed to go beyond any of the disciplines that you're within. So you're supposed to create something new, whereas interdisciplinary is sort of an exchange of knowledge among the different disciplines from my understanding. Trans meaning you have to transcend
Right.
the confines of your disciplines, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, and getting out of your comfort zone, but really be very humble and modest about it. So you bring the best of what you know to help
Yes.
understanding, framing of the problem. Somebody used that word, right? But you don't have the solution on your own. You really
Yeah.
need to rely on those multi-perspective in order to, and then you can find new way of
Yes.
addressing, and unpacking.
Yeah. So, but I think both approaches need to people to work in networks and teams.
Yes.
But in interdisciplinary, you are having a conversation among different teams without necessarily trying to create something new. Whereas transdisciplinary, I think you're trying to each one of you is trying to transcend, above and beyond your discipline as well. That's how I understand the difference.
Yeah, that's actually how it's being described, right? If we do it well, we would be definitely going above and beyond, which is a fantastic way to think about it. But it doesn't mean that you would lose that core knowledge. This is what I really like about it, because it's important, right? That we need to bring the best to it, and then go for it. Okay, Tara has wanting to join, but concerned about the internet connection, right? Oh no, sorry. Tara has also been the disconnect. I was like disconnection. I wanted Tara to ask this question, right? But let me just read this. The concern has been about the disconnect between the concerns we represent now and mainstream academic program. Is TD just a beautiful island? Okay. Tara, I don't know why you don't want to join us. This is so fun. Okay. Is TD just, that thing that, some people like to say, right, romanticizing small scale fisheries. We think of them this and this and that. Is TD another one of those kind of, thing that there is a paper that is written about TD. It's called The Cake a la Mode, right? It's like, topping and good thing. What do you think? Let me go to all the panelists and every one of you in this room. Are we just kind of, creating something again? A fad? Somebody think TD is just a fad? Come on. You really have a lot of trust confidence rather, in TD. This is just a beautiful island.
I think since I work with the policymaker for some years, and then I found that most of the policymakers, they formulate policy without low confidence. They just, if somebody hints them to some point, the policy shift to that point. So I think if we have a come from TD that is a compromise for the good solution for them, I think the policymaker want to use that one for our policy formulation. But unfortunately, so far we don't have any recommendation or conclusion from this discipline to the policymakers that until now policy that formulate in the country still use a conventional way, just based on scientific evidence and some requests from a group of stakeholders, but not all the stakeholders. So I think that one is maybe create some injustice to some group. The good example is the Royal Ordinance on Fishery that we have. That one is how can I say, this law is formulated based on needs of a small group of people to create that law and then result to the many problems in management of the coastal fishery right now. Yes.
Mhm. I think there's a bit of a concern about the fact that TD seems to be a little bit almost like flexy. You have to be able to recognize that there is not gonna be a simple solution. So government people are looking for solutions. They want to be able to tell this is what we have done. And if it's a TD process, you might not get to the solution, at least not in the way you think. It might turn out to be different types of solution altogether, because now you engage more with people and they have different perspectives and they might actually have different ways of thinking about it, the new knowledge, for instance. So it's a bit risky, right, for government. And that might be why they hesitate. This is just my guess. They are very why should we do this? We don't even know if we're gonna get there. We're not gonna give you money to do TD because you're not promising us that you're gonna solve the problem. You're actually gonna create more, make things worse. I mean, to us, we think we're helping, right? And to them, it's just like, no, you're not. Thamasak, you have been getting a lot of funding to do this kind of research, right? That now has this kind of stakeholder engagement. Has it been easier for you, actually? I'm going to be putting you on the spot a little bit. As a natural scientist, as an ecologist, are you kind of adding people to your project? And now you're getting funding to do it. A lot of people are doing that at the moment, right? They like to have this very good looking TD research. This is what the whole Belmont Forum is based around that, right? They're talking about pathway to sustainability. Everybody has to be TD. And when we look at their programs, it's still very much driven by natural scientists with particular, perspective. But because they need to be TD, they had to go and find partners and suggest that they're engaging with stakeholders. And once they get the money, hate to say, they still do whatever they're planning to do. Have you, I know you don't do that, but I'm kind of curious whether this is a culture or not that is happening. Would you like to comment on that, Thamasak?
Your point is that how can I spend the research budget to all of my colleagues with a different discipline, or what you want me to comment?
I'm making a point about how, because TD is so popular, it's that beautiful island that Tara mentioned. We have to put it in our proposal. In some funding program, unless you engage with stakeholders and promote this transdisciplinarity for sustainability, you're not going to get the funding.
Yeah.
But people are not really committed to do it. They just committed to get the money. Have you had that? I'm not saying that that's happened to you. I know you're not, but you are working with a lot of natural scientists. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think now, let me give you an example in Thailand. I think now our system has changed, because I think now if I would like to get the funding for my research, it's impossible for me to submit the research proposal that just, let's say, I would like to study the coral reef ecology. It is impossible. No one give me the money, but I have to propose something. For example, my previous research project on the sustainable tourism, or the carbon neutral aspect for tourism development, something like that. That means I have to involve many people, not only the scientists, not only natural scientists, social scientists, but it's also several stakeholders. For example, the tour operator, the local people, and there are many people that have to be involved in my research project. And that's, anyway, I think that the thing that I have to do, I have to bring them to the, to discuss on a table and let's
It is
work
interesting.
together to do the research. If I don't do that, it seems to me that it is impossible for me to reach the goal of my research project.
Yes, and that's what I meant about, in many ways, the funding program is forcing us to become more TD, and how we practice it is another story. But I mean, I think that many people who are doing what you're doing, you happen to enjoy that, right? And some people might just do it because they are being asked to, whether they're committed to it or not, we don't know. But that is really an interesting point. I see that, I don't know whether we have any more question or comment from the group here. I saw that Alice, you joined us and we haven't really seen you. So if, since yesterday, of course, but if you have any, because Alice organized a TD workshop in the Philippines, right? As part of the Asian fisheries the conference. And it would be good if Alice would like to share the experience, as your experience as well, in terms of what is it like to be working in that context in the Philippines. But I mean, not putting her on the spot or anything, but we have any other question? We have about, we don't need to, stay until the end of the session. We don't have any more comments, but if you have other questions or other experience, I would love to hear them, because we are really all learning, and it would be good to have more sharing of that experience.
Ratana?
Go ahead, Nireka.
Yeah, I would like just to comment on this question of whether it's a fantastic island or whatever it is, because I mean, some things are really important, and that's why, because there has been some kind of mandate or political agenda, whatever, that the funders or whoever. I mean, I can also think of gender, which I work a lot. I mean, a lot of times, proposals don't get funding unless there's gender inclusion or gender mainstream and all of that. And because of that, you think, okay, you're doing gender because you're forced to do it, or, it's a fig leaf or whatever it is. But, these issues are important, and, whatever way we need to, I mean, some people might have to be forced to do some things because, that's where the mandate is coming from, right? I mean, these are also sort of, in case of gender, it's also a social justice issue, right? But in terms of TD, I think one of the things with that is that, TD makes people, people are called upon to think outside the box. It's very important. People are called upon to be more creative, to be more flexible with their brains, and so on. So there are a lot of good things that come with TD, and the fact that you might be forced to do it is one thing. But I think, the fact that it might be a beautiful island, I think it might be, good to be in a beautiful island, because you're tapping on to some kind of creative, flexible part of your mind to some extent. But it's good because if everybody comes from a discipline, and they're grounded in their discipline, and they know how to communicate with those people from within their discipline, right? So that needs to be there. And then you come from within that discipline to becoming transdisciplinary, which makes you, which takes you to a different level of. So I think, I don't think we should scoff at it. And if funders are forcing it upon you, maybe it's something good that they're doing. For a
Yes.
change. Often they don't do good things, the funders. But
That's
in
a
this
good
case,
point. And I should say that in the Vermont Forum, I think they recognize that not a lot of people understand. So they actually offer training. So they want to make sure that you know what we're talking about, right? Because in this sustainability that we're talking about, whether as part of the YAFA pillars or the SDGs or whatever, you need to do that. You need to transform the way you think. You need to really look outside the box, as Nireka said. But not everybody is able to do that. So we actually are looking for people who are interested, even curious about what it means as a starting point. What I don't want us to get into, and I don't know whether that's where Tara is coming from or not, is about how people then calling themselves a TD, but not really doing it. And I would give example actually, and you would be able to help me answer this. I think there's a lot of space now for natural scientists to become social scientists for a reason that they're now because they work with people or they start to ask them a few questions and they think that's enough to be a social scientist. And I really take issue with that because even I cannot call myself a proper social scientist because I was never trained as one. And I have to read so many books, classic textbooks and theories and understand deeply what those social theories mean before I can converse properly with my hardcore social scientist. So I don't do that, right? I said, well, I'm an interdisciplinary scientist as my training, and I'm trying to be a TD, but I could never, I get embarrassed every time they talk about these classic, philosophers and thinkers on this. But I see so many natural scientists are so quick to call themselves, oh, we're doing social science research because we go talk to people and ask them a few questions. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ratna. I mean, sometimes natural scientists think social science is very easy. Anybody, because it's about society, and we are all members of society, so we all know something about being in society, and that's not it. I mean, there's a whole body of theory that you need to know, and simple. Yeah, there's so many. For example, if you say so, social science, the polyparadigmatic field,
It's easy, right? Everybody can be one.
Yeah, so you know exactly what polyparadigmatism is if you're a social scientist, but you might not if you're a natural scientist, right?
Right.
So it's things like that, but and I mean, I can't ever pretend to be a natural scientist or a food scientist, where you need to know your chemistry and your biology and all of that, right? And you need to do, or even a social scientist, an economist, because I have no way of, I mean, I'm an anthropologist, I can't do regression analysis. So, forget it. But I think we need to know, where our limits are, but at the same time, our minds need to be open enough and big enough to sort of grasp where somebody else is, coming from and going to, and yes. I think that is, what is important.
And that's
okay,
why
I think I've talked enough on this.
Tara, now you wanted to say something, perhaps? You're now joining us, a panelist. If you wanted to say something, Tara? Because I saw the microphone, but I'm not sure whether that's a signal or not. There you go. Hi. We actually don't hear you, Tara. There's something.
Is it okay now?
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. No, my question was triggered by my own experience as I was trained as an economist. very mathematical economics in that sense. And I chucked it some years back, and now research. But then I think, you become a star in the classroom, but then I think there are other concerns which
I think there's a little bit of a problem with the internet here. There must be a TD solution to to our version, the new world that we live in. We always saying, right? We want the equity, we want the accessibility, inclusiveness, and etc. And here we are. We always face these barriers and challenges. If we are approaching this from the TD perspective, I wonder what would be the solution. Elena and Jariya, you are the youngest one among us. So you must be able to help us navigate this. What would be our option? You just think about that later.
I'm so
Sarah,
sorry.
you're
Yeah.
back. That's no problem at all.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I
please.
was just trying to say that, when I meant by a beautiful islands, because it's actually beautiful to be in. But you don't get many, you don't get a kind of so I was giving an example that, okay, when you teach, interdisciplinary research in class and talking about this new vocabulary that you need to learn, and, how do you really sort of, create a new language for yourself. All that is very pretty and beautiful, and everybody would think that you are a star. But when it comes to actual choice of research, there is a hegemony there, and which is very kind of, disheartening. You have very few who have, who appreciate the beauty of, approaches like this, but they really do not want to go that way because, there are other concerns of a job and, like whether this will sell and this is marketable, and, then they get into regression, and, like it's much more interesting to do a chaotic model rather than, talking about. So that's worrying me. That's what I was thinking, that, that's what I was mentioning about this disconnect between the kind of curriculum that, in the mainstream teaching institutes create, and, where do we place TD in that? So this, the hegemony of other disciplines, because in my, I'm trained as an economist. So let me also tell you that I am not even accepted as a qualitative researcher because all my basic degrees are in economics. So I love talking the language of sociology and, like anthropology and all that. But then you are somewhere in the outer orbit when you are in the midst of your peers, which is very painful. So you have to be this, this color changing animal that, who assumes multiple forms and colors as, I love a DFM for the reason that, you speak a language that I enjoy.
No,
so
that's
I'm
really
sure
good
there are a
point.
lot of people who are caught in my situation. So that's why I said that I would love to take a little vacation in this beautiful island, but I know that I will have to go back to my,
Your real island.
yeah, just more of my mainstay, like, yeah.
Well, okay, why can't we think about it this way? Just because we want to go to the TD island, which is beautiful, and give it a try. It's almost like being a tourist, right? But a very experiential tourism, right? It's not just, just for pictures that we take home, but we really can be immersing ourselves, right, into that world and give it a try. And we might then decide that we're just going to stay there. But if some people said, oh no, I still like my own core discipline, there's nothing wrong with that, I think. And in fact, when you look back at your own discipline, I think you would be able to improve that core discipline in the way you think, the way you teach, the way you approach it. Because it really, now you go coming from this TD island, you go back to your core island, you can have a different perspective looking back. So this kind of reflexive learning is really part of TD.
Great.
So I think that's a very good thing to think about. And we should never lose that. So we then join many parties, right? When the economists get together, we join them. When the social scientists get together, we join them, right? When the natural scientists, get together, we join them. And then we have TD party, which everybody would join.
Yeah.
And
That is the party actually. Yeah.
the party. And the work that we have been doing, and with the TBTI and all these small scale fisheries, well, it's a big party.
Yeah.
And I think it's fantastic to have everyone there. Thank you so much, Tara, for that. I really, let's just be challenged by these, right? When we look at a problem from one particular lens perspective, problem can be solved in one way. When you look at it with these multiple perspectives and really trying to think beyond what disciplinary can lead us to, we would have a way to out that a solution that might be unique. And that's exactly what we need. I was saying to Jariya and Elena, you are the future in research, right? Because you're much younger than us. Are we offering? What is the future? Does TD have a place in answering or solving some of these, small scale fisheries problems or challenges rather that we face? Can you give us some encouraging words? We start from Jariya.
Thank you, Ha. I think for the challenge for the TD, I face a challenge about the gender one also, that when we talking about the gender, it's like a concept. People never know, people never understand, but when we try to give them an example of what we have done, and maybe they also done about something related to gender, that like they try to promote the women in the part of Thailand, that they have women group a lot, so that is already concern the gender. And TD also, when we try to look at it, we do some part of TD, but we try to fulfill it in the future. So I think maybe we just try to empower people to promote the TD from what they have done, and let them know that what that's it already. They do that, but before they just don't know about the concept. But maybe the people in the new generation, they more understand, and they more like a motivate to make more and more. Because like my generation, we would like to see the real because we said that we give the men fishing, not give the fish. So that is that never real from the long time ago, like a long journey. So I think now new technology and new knowledge and people more open mind, so we can build them awareness and let them see the real situation. Thank you.
Thank you. This is such an important point. Everyone might already be doing it, but they just don't know that it is called TD. So rather than trying to make it difficult for them, we just said, you continue what you do, but then think a little bit more about this and this and that, and adding and continue to build. Now, I have to laugh when you are saying that you're a new generation, but you actually are referring to a very old quote, huh? About give fish. What is this? Even I don't know how to say it. What? Give fish to a fisherman? No. Teach them to fish as opposed to give fish? Something like that. I'm terrible with these quotes, by the way, so you know now. But it's funny that you should be referring to that classic quote coming from. But this is good because there is no generation gap what it means, right? In many ways. People like to say that you don't know the golden oldie songs, for instance. But my nephew, who's 25, he knows those songs, right? When we listen to the Beatles, he knows the beats, right? And I'm just like, why should you? And then he said, but I also know this, whatever, futuristic music as well. So the younger people actually are much more TD. and maybe the future is really there. But Elena, you tell us.
No, yeah, I kind of see things like TD as, yes, a beautiful island, but it's one beautiful island on a future chain of islands. Maybe now that trending word is TD, but maybe 20 years from now, it's going to be something else. But I think it's getting us closer and closer and taking us on this wonderful pathway where really the focus is, whether it's going to be multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, it's the idea is the same. We're trying to not try to solve some like social problem with just one viewpoint, right? And I think that's the beauty of the way we change our research vocabulary, is that it's always dynamic, it's always changing, and it's being modified by the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. So yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on it.
And that's great. And then, when people do TD, the starting point is also very different. Who defines the problem, right? I mean, it's that's the thing, because researchers normally would go in and say, these are the problems and we're going to solve it. Now let's get together and solve it. We step back. So there's a step 0 for TD, which is actually, but whose problem? Who gets to define what the problems are? So there's a lot of power at play as well. Problems can be defined differently depending on who you are, and almost like language, right? Who determines language, holds the power. I think who defines the problem, right, also holds the power. And we want to make sure that the problems are defined in a very TD way. So it's not like, here's a problem, go solve it. But no, let's co-define the problem together. Tara, you have a point to make or not? Oh, your sound again. This is a bit strange.
No, I completely, no, I was very, it was quite heartening to hear Elena's point that, like maybe the language of the youth or the devices of the youth are better suited to really understand and appreciate it, which I also perhaps partially agree with that. They're more accommodative and they're more more inclusive in very many ways. Like, maybe I represent a generation which is so disciplinary in its, moorings. Like, you feel very uncomfortable, like, so the peer group that I interact with. So I've had a very bad experience of getting a research project, which uses interdisciplinary methods as the, method of inquiry. And finally, when the report came, they said that, this is everywhere, like you're talking about ethnography, being an economist, how dare you? So, so then you don't really know, I think, who to convert. And I'm talking about academic administrative systems or whatever, the governing systems or whatever. So there is a very big roadblock there, like, the gatekeepers of, some of these things. And I think nothing much has really changed in the gatekeeping technologies, in this. And that's a major worry.
Good
Otherwise,
point.
I'm very happy to hear her saying that, I because I also have a younger daughter, and I think she is much more accommodative, flexible, and, like.
That's great. There is so bright future. Suvalak, what do you think? Now I'm going to give you an opportunity to reflect now, because you were kind of, not, I don't want to use the word skeptical, but yeah. What do you think now that we have the whole hour and, almost an hour and a half to talk?
A little bit complex to explain in English, but anyway, for me, as I said, that over the Thai traditional natural resources management, there is some constraint that I raised, that if we get a real integration that was, say, over 20 years, I'm happy with that. But if we forget about whatever integration, but what we're gonna do, we make them to think broader. That is the difficult one, that I said that problem framing is the originality of all sort of things that we did. So that's in terms of real life, but in terms of research, it's much more, I think, less complicated, because it's the way of thinking. We express it and we get someone to comment. Did you answer all of the conventional thing? That's not hard. But in practice, let's say if we write something to the government, they like to say I need something to have the output fast. Don't think too much, clumsy. That was I heard every day. And did you already lobby all sorts of person that who are going to give you the negative result? So for me, it is a little bit risky solution, but we have to work on it. Sometimes 10 or 15 years, I don't know, but keep doing it, right? And also we have to make them that there is two opportunity. One, you go fast. The other one, you go a little bit slow, but you make it a very good and comprehensive. That I wish that I want to do in that way. And also, I think about the inclusive stakeholders. That is very significant. I have learned that people, when doing participations, there is much more than just participation. It's deeper than that. So if you get that one good enough, you have a very good facilitators, then you get something output from that meaningful participation. So that's how I felt that it's hard, but you have to do it anyway.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we actually gonna close a little early because we have another session that we're gonna run into. So thank you so much, all the panelists and the participants. You have been great, and this has been really good conversation. And I think we need to have more of this. Of course, we should say, but the more we talk about this, the better we get, right? And this is part of that discursive approach to things that Nireka talked about earlier. So thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoy the Congress, and we'll be having more session. Join us tomorrow, for instance, with the DFM session. It's gonna be great. Okay. Talk to you later. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.